Okay, I think I'm ready. Everyone else ready?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to this evening's Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of Wednesday, April 13th, and it is a little after 7 p.m. I've called the meeting to order, and I will note that all the commissioners are present. We won't do a formal roll call, and I will read the following land acknowledgement. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lijon. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home. Moving on to item 3, ex parte communication. Does any commissioner have any ex parte communication to disclose?
No.
Seeing head nods, we'll move on to item 4, which is the consent calendar. The consent calendar is normally approved in one motion unless a commissioner or a member of the public wishes to pull an item for further discussion. And I will note that I will pull item 1, the minutes, for a small correction. And would any commissioner like to pull any other item?
Comments about the minutes also, just a couple clarifications. So.
Okay.
Isn't item 4-2 being continued due to story polls, or did I have that? Oh, I see. That's as listed. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then let's just see if any member of the public, this would be a chance for the public who wants to pull one of these items for discussion, item 4.2 or item 4.3. This would be your opportunity to raise your hand, members of the public. And seeing no hands raised, we will go ahead and bring that back to the commission. And Commissioner McLeod, why don't you go ahead with your possible corrections?
Yeah, it was just a couple things. Let's see, let me find, it was in my comments. Instead of saying no parking minimum, it should say 0 parking minimum. I think that would be clearer. The other thing I was...
you have a page number reference?
It was page 4, line 1.
Okay, thank you.
And then a little bit further, same page. In terms of upzoning R3, I'd like it, you know, I did say that there was very little difference currently between R2 and R3. And then line 3, where it says R3 on contiguous blocks, that should be on contiguous blocks to the San Pablo commercial zone. And then I wanted it stated that I recommended or suggested that R3 should be upzoned to San Pablo commercial at those commercial blocks, at those contiguous blocks. So that was the gist of what I said. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I believe my corrections were on page 4, the paragraph right before item 8, new business. It says there's right in the middle, near the middle of the paragraph, it says, and improving the language used for measure K and measure D. I believe that my statement was that we should put ballot measures forward to reform measure K and measure D. Okay. So any other comments about the minutes then? If not, would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda calendar, the consent calendar with the changes to the minutes? And Commissioner Wadi, you're
Sure.
moving.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion to move the consent calendar being items 4-1, 4-2, and 4-3 as recommended, along with the additional changes to the minutes just read into the record.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner McLeod seconds. And all in favor, well, I'll just read the names. Commissioner Wadi,
Aye.
Commissioner McLeod,
Yes.
Commissioner Moman,
Yes.
Commissioner Donaldson. I think that's a yes, but you're muted, and I also vote yes. Confirming.
Yes.
Okay. And that consent calendar passes unanimously. And thank you for that. So moving on to the item 5, which is announcements, communications. Are there any, none listed in the agenda? Are there any further announcements or communications from members of the commission or staff?
Nope.
Seeing none, we'll move on to public comments. And this would be the time for the public to address the commission on any items that are not on the agenda. And I do see one hand raised, so please let that member of the public in, and welcome.
Susan Schwartz, please go ahead.
Am I unmuted?
Yes,
you are.
Thanks so much. My name is Susan Schwartz. As some of you know, I'm the head of Friends of Five Creeks, a volunteer group. There's some, oh, I see, that's the timer. Founded here in Albany more than 25 years ago. We do mostly hands-on restoration. We've transformed Cerrito and Codornices Creek, where we discovered the trout, for which we feel great responsibility. In those early years, Albany published a very forward-looking pamphlet advising people on how to care for creeks if they live next to them. But things have changed, and most of that advice is now either out of date and some of it is illegal. So we feel, and we are recommending through your commission, the Sustainability Committee, and the staff, that the advice and guidance that Albany give to Creekside property owners, including people with permitted construction projects, get a very serious look in the light of climate change and changing standards. There have been 2 reasonably recent slides at permitted Creekside construction projects. Neither was a disaster, but you can look at them as a sort of warning. Many people living on creeks now don't remember the big, dangerous, in fact, damaging slides of a generation or more ago. We are in a new climate world. We're going to have both more drought and bigger storms, and both of these are going to make banks less stable. Albany, like most older cities, has a number of homes that most people would agree now are built undesirably close to creeks. They are threatened, as are the endangered trout in the creek, should there be serious erosion or blockage of flow, and so on and so forth. Our impression from the Creekside property owners we speak to is that most of them are very well intentioned. They don't know what to do, and they don't get permits because it's too complicated to deal with that for their yards. So we would very much like to contribute to updated advice. This is not urgent, but I hope that you and others in the city will consider that project very seriously. Thank you so much.
thank you for your comments. And we do have one more speaker. Welcome.
Jeremiah, please go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Bond. Thank you, Chair Pilch. So this commission deals with property. So I was wondering what this commission's trying to figure out what's going on with these abandoned houses in Albany. I know Rose got a vacant abandoned house sitting right there on Adams on the 1000 block. There's a vacant house right there on Ren, right in the middle of everybody. This house is just sitting there. Be caught up in a land trust, it could be the kids, and the kids are arguing over what to do with the house because it was their parents and they can't agree on anything. So the house just there for 15 years. We either lose it. We have housing, but this thing is not being used. So maybe we could try to talk to these property owners and say, hey, what's going on? You're not doing anything with these properties in Albany. And we got to do something. So kind of use it or lose it in this situation. Possibly also, I'll change the subject a little bit to, I don't know, what's going on with that house of rats on Albany Hill. That's it's been kind of quiet lately. Did a solution happen? Did the rats go away? Or are there still a bunch of rats infesting everybody's yards and other properties? Heard anything about that, but that's been a concern of the community. Also, I'm not sure what's going on with the whole Sprouts Plaza. I went to planning and transportation and safety, because right there on 10th and Monroe in the Sprouts Plaza, that intersection on 10th and Monroe is very dangerous. There's an AC Transit bus depot station, transfer station right there. And there's no four-way stop. And those crosswalks, the crosswalk going from, between Starbucks and Habit Burger to Sprouts, that crosswalk has no signs. And so I'm caught in a catch-22. How do we make those crosswalks safer? Thanks.
Thank you. And I believe that's our last public speaker. The Brown Act limits our ability to discuss items that are not on the agenda, but I don't know if staff had any updates on any of the items mentioned by either speaker. If not, that's fine.
I'd prefer to do that if it was an agendized item. I think that would be more appropriate.
That's fine. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on then, we are on to action items, item 7, and the first one is design review and parking exception for a second-story addition at 805 Evelyn Avenue. And staff, would you like to present?
Oh, quick item before we do, I have to recuse myself on this item as I have an interest in real property within 500 feet. So I'll go ahead.
Thank you.
Turn my video off. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Christopher Tan, Associate Planner for the city. Before you tonight is Planning Application 2022-015, Design Review and Parking Exception for a second-story addition at 805 Evelyn Avenue. Some background on the property. The subject property is a 3,750 square foot lot with 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 1,197 square foot house built in 1928. City records show minor work done to the property in its past. Here's a street view of the property as it sits today. Project request. The applicant is seeking design review for a minor addition on the ground floor, as well as a second-story addition directly above the existing main level. The applicant is also seeking a parking exception approval from the commission to allow one off-street parking space in the front yard setback area. Altogether, the project scope would result in a 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2,031 square foot home with a maximum height of 28 feet. Here's the existing elevation of the home. And here's what's proposed. And here's an existing 3D render of the house. And then here's the proposed 3D rendering of the home. Exceptional design. Projects which exceed a 0.45 FAR is subject to exceptional design as indicated by the residential design guidelines. Some of these exceptional design and treatments for this project include a new front porch design and entry for the home, matching roof forms for both the first and second story of the home, wood fascia detailing, a combination of double hung fixed awning and casement fiberglass clad windows throughout, new skylights, and a new wood deck with built-in planters. Once again, the applicant is seeking a parking exception from the commission. There's an existing detached garage structure located at the rear of the lot, which is proposed to be converted into an ADU. Pursuant to section 2020-080 of the Albany Municipal Code, replacement parking for the primary home is not required to be located elsewhere on site when pursuing an ADU in its place. However, the applicant is proposing one off-street parking space in the front yard setback area. To do this, a parking exception is required as approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission in order to lawfully establish a parking space in this area. Therefore, the applicant is seeking permission for the parking exception to establish a total of one off-street parking space for the property in the front yard setback area. Staff has not received any correspondences regarding this project. The project is categorically exempt for CEQA review per section 15303. And with that, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission review and approve the proposed project subject to the findings and conditions of approval. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any commissioner questions? Commissioner Donaldson.
Unmute here first. Yes, Christopher, I wanted to find out about the lot coverage in the on page, I don't know, in the table in the report in attachment 1. You have the lot coverage at 44.7, very close to our 50% requirement. My question is, does that include the ADU, or does it not include the ADU? Does the ADU get added on top of that?
The ADU, yeah, that's a great question. The ADU is exempt from lot coverage calculations, and that's really their state law and our local zoning code. We have to allow, as a city, at least an 800 square foot ADU. That's not subject to the underlying site regulations as part of this review.
So the real lot coverage is going to be above the 44.7 then?
Correct.
Oh boy, okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Donaldson. Any other questions from commissioners? And seeing none, why don't we go ahead to public comment? I see one hand up. Go ahead, please.
Jeremiah, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just on Google Maps, 805 Evelyn. Looks like, you know, either it's an old photo of some old construction going on at that property. Looks like some guys out there doing some work in the yard, some pickup trucks. So my question is basically one thing. I was wondering if when we do these additions and we do things off-street parking, it sounds like they're going to be able to do an off-street parking, which is great. And I was wondering if when someone does a new off-street parking, is it too much to ask to create a policy to where, I guess you can't require someone to build an electric car charging station. But I was just wondering if maybe doing all this construction, it might be wise to incorporate the off-street parking to be equipped to handle potentially an electric car charger for the property. And I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I don't see any other hands raised. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? Are there any representatives, either the property owner or architect, who wanted to speak at this time? I see one hand by Jonathan Hewer or Hoyer, I think.
Yes, that's the project applicant.
Please go ahead and let that person in. Welcome.
Please go ahead, Jonathan.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to make my presence known that I'm available. I didn't really have any comments or questions.
Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate it. All right, if there's no other public comments, though, we'll bring it back for a commission discussion. And would anyone like to go first?
Well,
Commissioner Donaldson,
okay.
go ahead.
Let's see. Am I muted? No, I'm okay. Okay.
You are
Sure, I can go
audible.
first. Let's see where to start. First of all, Jeremiah talked about electric. I noticed that there's an electric car in the driveway and a charging station already installed on this house. So I just want to make that comment. So I think there's a lot, for me anyway, there's a lot to like about this project. I really like the architecture and the approach of maintaining the style of the building and incorporating that into the addition very effectively. I really like the new entryway that's been proposed, and I basically like the design. I really don't have any problems with the design at all. So a couple of things that I do, I'm really worried about. I don't like the fact that we're in a bind here with the density bonus. Or no, with the not the density bonus, the ADU law, and we have a couple of problems here. First of all, we're going to have two residences on this site with one parking space. The state is kind of forcing our hand on that, and it does conform with our zoning ordinance as revised, but it's not something that I'm fond of at all. I really think that there's going to be more than one car here, probably at all times, and we'll be adding to the burden of the street parking. So that's a real problem for me. Design-wise, the only little thing I noticed was that I'm not fond of having the electric box right on the front wall of the house. It's there now. I don't feel so strongly about it that I'd ask the applicant to say we should require it to be moved to the side of the house and more out of sight. I think that would add, several $1,000s, probably $3,000 anyway to the cost of the project. But it'd sure be nice if they would consider that. Both the electric box, the service entrance, and the car charging station are all right there, hanging on the front of the house. So anyway, that kind of bothers me. Otherwise, I really do like the design a lot. I'm concerned by Christopher's acknowledgement that the lot coverage of 44% does not include the ADU. And this will probably be the first project that I've ever seen in all the years I've been on the Planning Commission where we've actually exceeded the 50% lot coverage. And this is a small lot as it is. Albany lots are generally small and just doesn't leave much open space when we go above that 50%. And I'm concerned about that. And at this point, I don't know whether I'll vote for the project or not because of my concerns about the parking and the lot coverage, just the overall density of the site. I hate to say that because I do think the design and the architecture is very attractive, and that when seen from the street, the project will be very handsome indeed. So those are my comments. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Commissioners McLeod or Moman, comments? Commissioner McLeod. Oops, you are muted currently.
Been having glitches here. Yeah, I do appreciate this project. I mean, the crux of the issue is the parking exemption, and I'm happy to support that. There's really no other legal place to park. The driveway is too narrow technically to get a car down, but maybe if you had a small car, you could park there. And, you know, hopefully if there are multiple cars associated with this residence, then at least someone would have a smaller car and could park down on the driveway somewhere. Architecturally, you know, I'm fine with all the gables and everything. I would just, you know, looking at the plan, I would just be a little more generous in the entryway. I think it's a little tight. I mean, these are just suggestions, really. I mean, I would just make the entryway wide out to the corner and make it much more generous instead of having it like a narrow little hallway with the stairs right there. And I would also align the stairway with the entrance. I mean, that would be one kind of thing that would drive me nuts every day walking out and kind of swerve around the guardrail. I mean, just a small thing. You know, and a similar upstairs, I would actually extend the dormer on the master bedroom side to align it with the other side, with the bathroom side, and make the master bedroom a little more generous. And then the only other issue I have is with bedroom 4, and I just don't see that as a viable bedroom. It's pretty small, and with 4-foot ceiling heights on the edges, I just think it's going to be an awkward space. Maybe that's not meant to be a bedroom, really, but maybe a little home office or something. But more of a quote-unquote plus room than a bedroom. So I don't know how the applicant was thinking of that, but that just seems like it should be a little more generous as well. Otherwise, I don't really have any problem with the project, and I support it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Moman.
Thank you. I agree with most of the things that Commissioner McLeod said about this, and also the positive aspects of the design that Commissioner Donaldson mentioned. I really like the design too. I think it's an impressive addition done very skillfully, very tastefully. I really like the entrance. It is very impressive. It looks nice with the nice rhythm with the coplanar roof, and also the gable truss is also very interesting feature. I also really like the way the roofs have been developed. It doesn't add any extra bulk on the structure that would cause new shadows on the neighboring houses. The plan upstairs is a bit complex, but I think that kind of counters the positives that it has created with the roofs. I agree with Commissioner McLeod. I think the dormer on the, what side is that? North side, I think could be wider, as wide as the one above the bathroom. One thing I did not like much is the stair to the upper level. In order to go to the second floor, you have to come all the way to the entrance door, which is kind of not really good. If somehow the stair could be rearranged, that could be a huge improvement in the design. This could be a great project. And then, yeah, I don't know. I don't have any, any alternate idea to that stair. But if somehow the stair could be accommodated elsewhere in the middle of the house, that would be really great improvement. One thing I noticed, this house I think requires a landscape plan as part of the exceptional design requirements, which is missing, I think. So maybe staff should work with the designers and the applicant to get that included. Other than this, I think this is really an interesting modification to this existing structure that extends, continues the existing architectural style without compromising it. In fact, it improves it in a much better way. I really like this project and I support it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. And yeah, I had the same, I noted the same thing about the landscape plan, but staff told me that is not a requirement for projects above 0.45 FAR, but it was encouraged. And so is that still the case?
Yes, that's correct. So technically, the guidelines state that a landscape plan is highly encouraged. To achieve the exceptional design standards, an applicant must implement some or all of the principles that are detailed in the residential design guidelines. So that can be a combination of high quality window treatments, a landscape plan, exterior cladding material, et cetera, et cetera. With that said, the commission does have discretion to require a landscape plan if they feel that would complement the design. As you know, our previous commissioner was a landscape architect, and so that was something that was previously honed in on a lot more closely with his professional lens on.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. So I don't have many comments. I think the design is mostly fine. I'm not an architect, but my eye, and I felt that it was a clever design, a good design, but the back of the house did feel a little bit pasted on to the front part. But I'm not sure how else you could do that design without having a few kind of crazy roof angles. So I'm certainly nothing I would push, especially since I'm not an architect and none of the architects have spoken up about it. But I will note, and it's not in our purview, but I will note that the ADU plans were included as well. Those aren't plans that we review. Those are, the ADU will be approved ministerially. But I will note that the ADU is incorporating a loft. So a semi, another story, not a full story, but another story above the first story. And it just makes me think that that as we go forward with the housing element, we ought to include raising the height limit on ADUs, and maybe even before the housing element is approved, we ought to consider that. And that's all I had. And then I think Commissioner Donaldson has raised his hand again, so please go ahead.
Yes, I have. Just, I did want to say, I forgot, that I do not have a problem with the parking exception in the front yard for the front yard. I can support that in this situation. Just wanted to add that to my comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, and I support that exception as well. I would support a condition, actually, though, to move the electric meter and associated electrical gadgets such as the charger to the side from the front. I'd be fine with that as a condition if other commissioners were interested in that. But I'm not hearing any strong votes for, well, let's see, are there any things that, besides approving the project as is, are there any other things that, or are there any things that the commissioners want to bring forward as requirements? Commissioner McLeod?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to agree with Commissioner Moment on the stairway issue. It doesn't seem like a very pleasant way to go up, and it doesn't integrate the two levels of the house very well. So if there was a way to make it central, I think it would be a big improvement, and then that front bedroom could be a lot more coherent and a much better shape. But it does mean giving up some other space in the middle of the house and coming up in that family room area. So, I'm not gonna, that's interior organization. It's not something I would require. I'm a little ambivalent about the meter, the electric meter moving. I suppose if they're upgrading the service, it would be the time to do that. Maybe they have to upgrade the meter because they're adding much more space and more electrical load. And if they're going more of an electrical setup, all electric setup, then they would have to do that anyway. And if that were the case, then I would strongly support moving the meter location. And I guess I didn't see that location on the plans. And I suppose that was because Commissioner Donaldson, you went by the house or saw it on a Google Street shot or something?
The photo, I think, in our packet shows the meter.
Yeah, no, it was very clear to me when I went, when I went by. And Ian, I also thought it looked like they had pretty robust service there, so they may not need a new service entrance because there is a car charger there. And
yeah, they might have upgraded it.
It looked fairly robust. So
okay, and now I see it in the photo. You
guys
have better eyes than I do.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Well, you certainly have the option of making it a requirement if the service is upgraded, otherwise not.
Yeah.
I guess the problem I have is that if you do move it to the driveway side, and I guess technically it won't be a driveway anymore, though it would have to be protected by a bollard, which would make it really impossible to put even a small car
right
on the side yard on that driveway space. So I don't know. I would just as soon leave it alone.
Okay.
And it gets very expensive. Electric work these days is really expensive.
Yes,
right?
it is. Mm-hmm.
$3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for a new 200 amp service is not, not unknown. It's getting up there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. So I'm not hearing yet any other requirements to add to the approval of this. So if there's no further discussion, would someone like to move approval? Commissioner McLeod?
Yeah, I move that we approve item, this is 7-1 PA 22015, design review and parking exception for second story addition at 805 Evelyn Avenue. I move that we approve as is.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Commissioner Moment seconds. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I will poll the members. Commissioner McLeod?
I'll vote yes.
Commissioner Donaldson?
I'll vote yes, reluctantly, because of the parking and the lot coverage. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Moman? I see a nod, which I believe is a yes for approval, and I will vote yes as well. So 4 yeses with Commissioner Waddy recused. So thank you very much. There are story polls up, and those must remain up for 14 days during the appeal period. And thank you very much for your application. And we will move on to the next item. And the next item is item 7.2, design review and conditional use permit for a 2-story addition and basement conversion at 1038 Peralta Avenue. Go ahead, staff, please.
Great, thank you. I'll do a quick presentation again and happy to answer questions afterwards. Once again, this is a basement conversion and second story addition at 1038 Peralta Avenue. Some background on the property. The subject property is a 4,375 square foot lot, 35 feet wide by 125 in length. And it's a sloped lot with a 4-bedroom, 1 bathroom, 1,334 square foot house built in 1923. City records show the following work done to the property. Notably in 1982, design review approval was approved to change the flat parapet roof to a pitched roof. However, construction was not pursued. And also notably, in 2010, a design review application was approved to change the roof from flat to gable. And that's how you see it today, as a gable roof. Here's a street view of the property. You'll note the gable roof on top. And with that, the project request, the applicant is seeking design review for the proposed basement conversion and a second story addition on top of the main level, as well as a conditional use permit to extend the existing non-conforming north wall. Altogether, the project scope would result in a 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom, 2,368 square foot home with a maximum height of 27 feet and 3 inches. Here's an existing elevation of the home. And here's the proposed elevation. You'll note the change in architectural style to craftsman in appearance. Oopsies. And then basement conversion. Pursuant to section 2024-050 floor area ratios of the Albany Municipal Code, a lower level of a home may be exempt from FAR calculations if the average perimeter height is less than 5 feet. The subject property, as mentioned, does slope down from the front of the property to the rear of the property and has already an existing basement area. The project scope includes excavating within the existing building footprint, but in the front portion of the home where there is already existing crawl space area in an effort to create additional conditioned space for the home. And here's just that code section that was aforementioned. We highlighted this portion. An important note that the measurements of the heights are taken from existing grade conditions at the time of the application filed, and that the grade may not be altered for purposes of exploiting this provision. And this table was included in the staff report. This merely indicates how the average perimeter height calculations are derived. And you'll see that the average perimeter height is just below 5 feet. And thus the lower level has been exempt from FAR calculations. And this slide just shows the existing slope conditions on both sides of the home. You'll notice a pretty drastic change in slope there from the front to the rear. Conditional use permit. The subject property is 35 feet wide and thus requires a 3.5 foot or 3 foot 6 inch side yard setback. Per the AMC, the existing north wall is located 2 foot 1 inches from the property line where 3 foot 6 is required. The applicant is seeking approval from the commission for a conditional use permit to vertically extend the north wall to accommodate both the proposed basement conversion and the proposed second story addition. Findings for the use permit were included as attachment 2 of the staff report. This project is also subject to exceptional design as it exceeds a 0.45 FAR. Some exceptional design treatments include changing the existing architectural style of the home to craftsman in appearance, new wood fascia and decorative wood brackets under the roof eaves, a new cross gable roof forms across the home, a new front porch design and entry with built-in planter box, a combination of double hung fixed casement wood windows throughout, a new wood deck with stairs at the rear of the home that lead to the rear yard area, a new second story balcony off the primary bedroom suite, and minor landscaping improvements such as new concrete pathways, the deck and stairs as mentioned, and various drought tolerant plantings. A total of 2 off-street parking spaces are provided in the existing detached garage and the parking pad directly in front of it. No additional off-street parking spaces are triggered under this project scope. Staff has not received any formal correspondences to forward to the commission regarding the project proposal, and the project is categorically exempt from CEQA. And with that, staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission review and approve the proposed project subject to the findings and conditions of approval. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, let's take questions. Any questions first before we go to any public comment? Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Moments, excuse me.
Thank you. I'm looking at this sheet number A3.2 that shows some renderings. I want to ask the applicant if the color palette shown there is the final one or just kind of a rendering technique.
Do we have the applicant available or representative for a question?
Yeah, Sunny's available here. He's the project applicant and architect.
And
are you able to hear me?
yes.
Okay, good evening. Yeah, the color renderings there are close to what the color palette will be, but it's what everybody sees on their computer might be slightly different to what I see on my computer. When the time comes, we're happy to put swatches on the walls before things are finally painted out, or even submit color samples to the Planning Commission at that point when needed. But this was just kind of a first look at some of the color samples we were looking at. But again, it could slightly change.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Commissioner Moman?
No, thanks.
Okay, any other questions from commissioners? If no question, okay, Commissioner McLeod. You are muted.
Just kind of the usual. Are you planning on going all electric? You're redoing almost everything, so it's a great opportunity to work towards a fossil fuel free house, non-polluting house, and go all electric. So I was wondering what you were planning on for that. That was a question for the applicant. So
right. Okay. Yeah. Yes. We're happy to explore that further. I'll talk to the homeowners if they're willing to, consider all electric. I think we did talk about adding solar panels sometimes in the future. So that is certainly an opportunity. The only thing that might be gas is going to be possibly the fireplace and the current stove. And I can talk to the clients about it, whether, how they feel about going to an electric stove. Not everybody's happy about that, but it is something we can consider. Most of the heating system that we do nowadays is electric. We're going with, the heat pump systems. So it really comes down to a fireplace, which electric fireplace are great to look at, but they're just electric fireplaces. And then in terms of the stove, one of the things we have been doing is even if we're putting in a gas stove now, we almost always end up putting in a 240 electric outlet nearby. So it's ready if anytime then the client wants to switch over to electric stove without having to do any additional work in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Last call for questions from commissioners. And seeing none, we'll go to the public comment. I believe we have one commenter.
Mr. Jeremiah, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I was just looking at the property on Google Maps. I was trying to find the front door, and I don't see an entrance from the street. Is the entrance on the side of the house? Kind of interesting. I tried to look from side to side. I think the entry was one side of the house. On the left side of the house, there's a bush. I did see some sort of awning. Anyway, my point is ADA accessibility. I was wondering how this home is accessible to a wheelchair, or if someone falls in the home and the fire department needs to come. How do they wheel?
Jeremiah, I think we've lost your out there. The connection isn't very good. I'm sorry.
We have one more commenter, I believe.
Gail, please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, I live next door. I'm in the blue house that you can see next door in the photo. I've lived here a long time, about 36 years, and I'm concerned about the proximity of construction. I'm home during the day, I'm retired, and it's going to be not only noisy, but really dirty. And I'm concerned about my home. And I'm concerned about the drainage issue. Since they're digging down so far, our houses are pretty close. And what kind of impact that's going to have on my nearly 100-year-old house. Yeah, because I mean, the water table's very low here on Peralta. So I'd like a screen or a curtain of some sort erected, not only for privacy, but to keep the dirt and construction, stuff off my house. I just had painted about a year ago. I just want some neighborly consideration, and I'm not sure that's in here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we have one more public comment, possibly two.
Susie.
Susie Evelyn, please go ahead.
I'm on the other side of the house. And first of all, I want to thank the architect for a good job. I think it looks great. I am willing to, of course, I am the house that's affected, excuse me, affected by the 2.1 as opposed to 3.6. And that is some concern to me because that driveway is where we park our cars because everyone knows on Peralta there's no parking. So in the construction time zone, what are we going to do about if they need scaffolding and all that kind of stuff? I have grave concerns about having access to my driveway. The other thing I need to know is how is that excavation going to be done? Is that going to come from the front or are they going around back? In my honest opinion, if anyone wants my 2 bits about that, it seems like the excavation part of this whole beautiful project could be looked at as maybe overkill. They're going to have how big of a house when they're done, a beautiful house when they're done. So maybe they could relook at that excavation thing. I do want to thank Mike for working out the issue with our bathroom window box. He's promised to replace it with the glass so that the little boys won't have to see us showering. So I thank him for that. I also am knowing that Mike and Corey have been really, really amenable with everything. I get a little bit nervous when it says you got to bring it up now or forever hold your peace. I'm just hoping that as issues arise that we can work anything out. But if they could address how that excavation is going to get done, I'd like to know that. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. And I don't see any other hands raised for public comment. So thank you for your comments. I'll bring it back to the commission. And I'll just state that we have the entrances from the side that's visible in the currently the entrances from the side that's visible in the photographs in our packet. And we have regulations for how construction must be done to protect neighbors. But I don't know if staff wants to speak at all to possible logistic issues with regard to excavation, whether they foresee any problems or whether that has been considered at all.
I was just going to speak to the drainage. As we mentioned several times at other hearings, our drainage policy is the standard conditions of approval that's enforced by the building inspector throughout the building inspection process. So that's in regard to the drainage. We have seen other excavation projects here in the city, and as far as I know, those ones went pretty smoothly and turned out to be really good projects from my final inspections on them, at least. the architect and the subject property owners are always willing to volunteer to take additional steps to work with the neighbors if that's something they want to discuss amongst each other. But the city doesn't typically get involved with those type of discussions.
I would just add that in most cases, these things tend to work out. It certainly can be an inconvenience for periods of time, often at the beginning of the project when there's a lot of digging or demolition, but they always seem to work out. And it's just kind of keeping the lines of communication open both ways is really what's most important. And if there's some way the city can help mediate something, we would if we can, we will if we can, but it just, for the most part, it seems to work itself out.
Yeah, and I will say, I think I can say on behalf of everyone that we do appreciate the concern or the consideration of the applicant and the builder for the neighbors. Let's see, so discussion, Commissioner Waddy, you have your hand up.
Sure. I was just wondering if we wanted to give the project applicant an opportunity to present on this project. I think we usually do that, and I don't think we gave them a chance.
Thank you.
And I'd love for them to have an opportunity to respond to the public comment as well.
That's a great idea. Thank you for that. Can we let the applicant back in?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. In terms of the excavation on a project like this, what typically happens is first thing to do is to shore up the house, at the basement level. And here, excavation should be fairly easy because we have a full height on the back with a driveway access. They're going to probably use a bobcat from the rear and then dig starting from the back, going all the way towards the front. Anytime we have retaining walls where you end up, with a very high cut, the retaining walls then are typically done in sections. So there's a small chance of unsupported, grade, caving in. So, typically our engineer is always on site to make sure, those things are taken care of. So excavation is not going to be difficult on this particular project because we have a good driveway and a side, and it doesn't have to be handwork, which takes much longer. Here, it'll be done with a small bobcat, and it can be done fairly well. In terms of, dirt and debris, we can always look at, putting a fence along the left-hand side, with a fabric on it or something like that, that keeps any, dirt moving in the neighbor's direction. And in terms of construction activity, it's going to be done during the time that is allowed by the city, with certain noise level that they can't exceed. So, that's going to be always, done per code. And in terms of the earlier question from one of the other speakers, I'm not, sure about ADA requirements. Single-family houses are not required to be ADA compliant.
Right.
I don't think that you could ever make most houses work. We do that sometimes for particular clients, elderly clients, that they want something that's straight to walk in. But this case, we have a house with the new design. By moving the porch in the front, we actually have reduced it from about 5 or 6 steps into the house to, I think, just 3 steps into the house. But it's gotten better than what it was. And I think by moving the entry to the front, I think we actually make the house have a nicer, facade than it currently did with the entrance on the side of the house. And we, my intention is always, try to design a house that does not look like it has like an add-on. So when this thing is done, it, hopefully it'll always look like it's, a 2-story house. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you guys may have.
Okay. Any comments from commissioners or other questions for the applicants? Commissioner Waddy.
Sure. Happy to, no questions for me. Thank you, Sunny, for your comments. Just happy to jump into my comments on this project. I do hear the neighbors and you know, at some level, I'm happy that I think most of the comments are around construction related concerns, which always are the case. There are robust conditions of approval and additional review parameters that happen after the Planning Commission here takes action. So they're very normal things. We're used to hearing those concerns. But as was said before, I think they're usually mitigated quite well as the project gets further into the construction details and the construction rules that the city has in place. In terms of really what's within our purview this evening, in terms of the design review, the conditional use, the lower level conversion, all in all, I think this is a really well-designed project. It's utilizing high quality materials. Really like the fact that they're introducing a front porch and really bringing that entry to the street rather than having it tucked on the side. I think the vertical addition is really well integrated into the project, and to the architect's point, it looks like it could have been built that way, and definitely fits in with existing architecture within the neighborhood. And then lastly, there's a well-done landscape plan to go with it. So all in all, between the high quality materials, the sensitive massing, I think this is a well-done project in terms of the conditional use. I've said this before on other projects, but I think when there's an existing non-conforming wall, enabling folks to be able to carry that wall makes for a much more well-designed project, in my opinion, rather than requiring a staggered wall. So I am typically in support of conditional uses that are carrying an existing non-conforming wall. So all in all, I'm in support of this project. Yeah, won't take up any more time, but I think this is a really well-designed project and I'm in support. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Commissioner Donaldson.
Certainly, thank you. Yes, I really do. I like the project. And I really like the change in the front entrance. I think it's a very significant improvement to the overall design. And I noticed that the profile from the street is actually going to be really lower than what's there now, and more modest. This will be a very large home actually, but taking good advantage of the downslope. It will not be at all obtrusive from the street, and having the front entrance on the street totally conforms with our design review guidelines, and will really improve the project and improve the street view. In my opinion, I'm really very favorable of that. I don't have a problem of supporting the conditional use permit to extend the one non-conforming wall. I did hear the neighbor on that side have concerns about possible scaffolding going there, and it is a very narrow setback adjacent to her driveway. And I really, in general, I would advise the neighbors on both sides to get the phone numbers of the architect and of the owners, and especially of the contractors, and stay in contact with the contractor when you're working on that. They may indeed need to put some scaffolding up there for a few days at some point, or maybe even longer. I'm not sure, but that should be worked out in a neighborly way, and I think it can be. So the only design question I have and concern I have, I'm interested in other commissioners see it the same way, is that I think that the punch out on the second floor on the south side is a little too much, a little too far. That would be in bedroom 3, I think they labeled it there. If you shrunk that in by another foot or so, I don't think it would be quite as obvious, and to me, it's a little bit unbalanced and a little bit heavy on that on that south side. I don't know. It might look okay when it's constructed because it is a ways back, but I would shrink that bedroom by a foot or a foot and a half and pull that punch out in a little bit for aesthetic reasons if I were doing it. So that's my only concern, and I'm not sure what other commissioners think about that. But otherwise, I think it's a very fine project, and I support it. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Commissioner Donaldson. Commissioner McLeod.
Yeah, I agree with the comments that have been made so far, pretty much 100% about the entryway moving forward, quality materials, good design, etc. And I actually do agree with Commissioner Donaldson on the bump out of the bedroom. It does look a little bit ungainly to me. There are other examples around town where that's been done, and it tends not to look that great. The whole thing could be shifted inwards a foot, perhaps. I mean, I see why you're trying to put windows on both sides at the bump out, which is nice, but maybe you could still come in 1 foot and you could still have a slightly bigger, or still have a window on the street side in that bedroom, and the hall wall could certainly bump in 1 foot. The hall is quite generous. So I do agree with that comment. I think it would be a better looking project. When I look at the building section on page A3.2, it does look a little bit funky, kind of sticking out at the top there. It is a bit back. It may not be so obtrusive, but I think it would just look better if it was about 1 foot in, and you could still have 1 window in the front facing the street. So I would support moving that in. Regarding the neighbor comments about dust and construction noise, it's, it happens all the time, and it's just something people, we all have to suffer through it at some point when some neighbor's doing it, but, it is for the benefit of our city to have these projects done, and it improves our city, and it improves your neighborhood, and it improves property values. So that's something to think about. And like has been said, it's great to keep lines of communication open and discuss things. And it sounds like the applicants, the owners, have been doing that already to some degree. At some point, there will be scaffolding to do the second story on both sides. You'll have scaffolding. And so as neighbors, you'll have to come to an agreement on how long it will be there and access and all those sort of things. And on the driveway side, there will be scaffolding there too. And then on both sides, you could put netting on the scaffolding that would help prevent debris and dust from flowing over to the neighbors' yards. And I do support the extension of the non-conforming wall. It's something we've supported in the past, and to be consistent, we've done it on lot lines where it's been much tighter. So, I have no problem doing it here. And as Commissioner Waddy said, it does make for a better project, I think. Instead of trying to offset, I think it makes it structurally better for earthquakes. And it actually makes the house look better instead of having that little bump out at some little funny roof edge there. The comment about maybe less excavation would be better. It's up to the applicant, but you could pull it back a little bit and it wouldn't hurt. There's plenty of room down in the basement level. The other comment that we had from Jeremiah about ADA compliant is that no, it doesn't have to be, but if you do look at the basement level, it could certainly be, accessible at grade, and that whole basement level could be an ADA accessible unit. I think the only thing to do there would be to make the bathroom a little bit bigger and have a roll-in shower. And that would be a great little, accessible apartment or living space for somebody, either an older parent or even a renter of some kind. So that's doable. It could certainly be rolling grade level in and then a level apartment. And the only thing missing is making the bathroom a little bit bigger, and you could make the kitchenette a little bit more accessible too in terms of how it's accessed. But other than that, I support the project and would like to see it approved. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Moman, do you have any comments?
Thank you. I don't have any additional comment. I generally agree with most of the comments my fellow commissioners have expressed. I would just like to add one thing. This is a large house, and also not just in conformance with exceptional design, but also in order to reduce the perception of the bulk, I would recommend some variation in the exterior material finishes. The designer mentioned in the beginning they would work on the color palette, have color patches and stuff like that, but I would recommend having some variations in the material, so not just in color shades or something.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. I think I can support all the comments by my fellow commissioners. The only thing I noted was when I looked at the basement plan, it does look like, with the exception of a cooktop or a stove, that could be another unit down there. And I just wondered if that was the plan by the applicant to potentially make that another unit down there, because you do have the washer, dryer, refrigerator, sink, dishwasher already there. Does the applicant want to speak to that at all? And a bathroom. Yeah, you'll have to, I don't know if you have to let the applicant unmute or.
I think unmute.
Okay, yes. Currently, as the homeowners want to use, they really want that space downstairs for themselves. But the idea was that if they ever wanted to be able to convert it into an ADU, that we have the substructure in place to do so. So, we put the I showed the washer dryer in there now. And because it's a slab on grade, if everything is plumbed in there now, it makes it very easy to convert later on. The other thing that I would even consider doing, which we probably will do, is we will create the proper a fire separation and even a sound separation between the basement and the upper level. So again, the only thing in the future they would have to do is close off the staircase. So it is designed with the intent. One of the things that I've been talking to a lot of clients lately is about, as people get older, they would like to have a space where they could live and, in a smaller space that's more easily accessible, back to being, it being ADA accessible, which this unit at the ground floor can accommodate all of that. And then the upper 2 stories still remains a nice, a 4-bedroom house.
Right.
So that was the intent. Right now, that wet bar really is meant to be a kind of a place for the kids to hang out with a refrigerator and a sink, and without having to constantly run upstairs to the kitchen or something.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for all that. Appreciate it. And the only other comment I have is that, I see the commissioner's concern with the bump out on this 2nd-story bedroom. If we wanted to make it a condition to change that, probably would be amenable. Otherwise, a great project. Although whenever I see a project like this with 4 bathrooms, I just think, well, that's 4 bathrooms that have to be maintained and cleaned. So hopefully you know what you're getting into. Not my business though. So Commissioner Donaldson.
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Moman made a question about the color, and I did notice the bright colors on the prints on the plans when I printed them out. I just wanted to comment on that generally. We have, I think I can say safely, we have a tradition in Albany of not regulating paint colors, and it's not. We don't have that in the design review guidelines. I think we debated that at the time and talked about it and decided we didn't want to go there. We don't require permits when you paint your house. You can choose the colors. We don't disallow people with having murals painted on their house. They can do that. themselves. So I'm very worried about somehow moving slightly into the issue of house colors, and I don't think we should do that, and I don't think we have the sort of legal standing to do that, actually. With material surfaces, and it's a different matter altogether. That's definitely is a part of our design review purview. But I've always stayed away from colors and left that up to the homeowner. And I think that's been the tradition in the commission for many, many years. So I just want to make that comment at this point. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Commissioner Moman.
Thank you, Commissioner Donaldson. I totally agree with you. I personally would not recommend any, color preferences. It is the house owner's, choice. I commented in reference to the exceptional design requirement that says variation in exterior material finishes and not the colors. Color could be anything. And so I was referring to that, not the color shade. The reason I mentioned color shade because the designer mentioned in the beginning that they would have color shade applied, samples applied on the house and all that. But my main gist of the comment is about the variation in the exterior finishes. This whole house has, is already a huge house. It's bulky, and it just has stucco everywhere.
Right.
So I was just wondering if having some variation in that would reduce the sense of the bulk of the house. It is going to be a large house.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Moman. Commissioner Wadi?
I was just prepared to make a motion on this if others are done with discussion. So,
well, let's one moment, because I don't know if the applicant still has his hand up from previous time, if he wanted to say anything more about the exterior finishes or no. Okay, the hand has gone down. So go ahead, Commissioner Wadi.
All right, with that then, I'm happy to go ahead and make a motion on planning application 22-011 to approve the design review conditional use permit for a second story addition and basement conversion, along with the revision or change to reduce the bay window at the upper floor by a depth of 1 foot. And that would be my motion. And I think hopefully that encapsulates some of the issues, maybe not all.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'm happy to second. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any discussion on that motion? Commissioner McLeod?
Yeah, just to clarify that we would reduce the overhang at bedroom number 3 by 1 foot. Is that?
Just a commensurate, like the whole unit of that bay window reduced by 1 foot. So the eave as well.
Yeah, the whole bed, essentially the whole bed.
Pull it in by 1 foot.
Yeah, okay, yes.
Bedroom 3, okay.
Clarify.
Yeah.
Okay, great. The clarification. Any other discussion? Otherwise, I'll just go ahead and call for the vote. Commissioner Wadi?
Second.
Yes.
And Commissioner McLeod?
Yes.
Commissioner Moman?
Yes.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Yes.
And I vote yes too, and it's unanimous. And so congratulations, your project is approved. And I believe there are story poles here as well. Those must remain in place for 14 days during the appeal period. And that does it for that item. Thank you for the applicant for your input and your answering questions as well. Moving on to the next item. I don't think we have a next substantive item. I think the next item is 8 new business. There is none on there, but sometimes we do talk about future agenda items. And so without getting into discussion about this, I just wanted to ask staff a question about the ADU item. I know that it has been in our housing element, it's been suggested we could consider raising ADU height, and wanted to ask staff, what if we wanted to do that earlier than before the housing element is approved? Do you see a way for us to do that?
Well, the commission can initiate have us agendize this for more detailed discussion. And if you wanted to kick off the process of an amendment to the zoning code, you're welcome to do that.
Okay.
We'd be happy to consider that and, give you some pros and cons and some examples of how that might work, particularly in light of a lot of the changes in state law recently.
Okay. Thank you for answering that question. And then Commissioner McLeod, I know you had spoken to me about another potential future agenda item. Did you want to speak to that at this time, or did you work that out with staff?
No, I haven't really broached that with staff. I was just thinking we should look at our bicycle ordinance citywide. Instead of having it apply upgraded in some way to just San Pablo Avenue, it should apply to all projects across the city. And I just would like to look at it as an amendment to our planning code.
Okay.
Agendize that in the future as well.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. And Commissioner Donaldson, you have your hand up?
Yes, since we're talking about potential future new business under new business, I wanted to comment on the Susan Schwartz comments tonight. I think they're really important. I was quite disturbed by the project we had along the creek several meetings ago. I think it's a real important issue. I think we've learned the hard way that our current creek ordinance with the definition of natural slope, however that language worked, is very cumbersome, to say the least. I think her comments are very well taken, and I think that it really is time in the coming year to take a good start work on a good look at our creek ordinance and I guess we have three creeks. But particularly Cordonices and Cerrito Creek. We have had issues in the recent past of homes abutting those creeks that want to expand, and it's difficult for us to deal with. So we need some help there, and I think the comments are very well taken. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we're not allowed to get into a discussion about that, but it sounds like that the three of us could work with staff and myself as chair to agendize these for the future.
In the future, that's right.
Okay, great. And moving on then, to pass new business to the next meeting, which will be April 27th, 2 weeks from now. And I think that's it. That's the end of our meeting. And unless there is any further business, we are adjourned. And thank you, everyone, and good night.
Good night.